Good morning, everyone. We will continue as everyone is piling back into the room. So to kick off this session, I'll just introduce our panel of esteemed participants. Starting on my right, we have Karim Wazni. He's our Director of Business Development for Agreco. Next to him, we have Mark Kennedy. He's the Manager of Business Development for Wärtsilä. And then we have on the far left there, we have Akram El Nawi, Global Key Accounts Manager for Caterpillar. Welcome everyone to the panel. We have in absence also Satish Jaram. He's from Cummins and he had to sneak out. So we'll put some of the Cummins commentary also into the discussion. We believe Cummins have some interesting points to add. So I'll just speak as an independent person on the Cummins' points. I'm from the mining sector, so no alliance at all. What I'll do is just ask each of the participants to just introduce themselves and their company and product very briefly, and then we'll dig right into the questioning. Right, Wasim.
Hi, so I'm very pleased to be here. Karim Wazni from Agreco. For those of you who don't know Agreco, we are a large power rental company. We have about 9.5 gigawatts of generation assets ranging from diesel, gas, HFO. And we're serving a lot of customers in the mining industry in remote locations, providing and operating power plants off-grid.
Hello. I'm Mark Kennedy with Wärtsilä. I'm the Business Development Manager for Wärtsilä in Canada. For those who don't know Wärtsilä, we're a big OEM. We make very large reciprocating engines, anywhere from around 3 megawatts to 20 megawatts per unit. And our power plants range in size from a few megawatts right up to 600 megawatts. We're quite a big player in the mining industry. We have around 80 mines where Wärtsilä has equipment. Some of the speakers yesterday, Barrick Gold, we have 4 plants with them. IAM Gold, the Essakane plant, that's a Wärtsilä plant. So we're quite large in the mining space. We're also in the utility and IPP sectors. And yeah, I look forward to the questions.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And my name is Akram El Hennawi. I'm the Global Key Account Manager for Caterpillar Microgrids. And this will be my focus today, is bringing microgrid. I hope everyone here knows about Caterpillar. Like we are almost in every mine around the world. Just a very high level about Caterpillar. We are operating in over 180 countries. We are having 177 dealers global-wise. Today, we are supporting around 3 million equipment on the ground, just giving you like where the size of Caterpillar. The main business for us, it's mainly mining, constructions, energy, and transportation. What I would like to bring it to your attention is starting from 2015, we're expanding our portfolio to include microgrid and renewable generation, and that's what we are going to discuss it today. I'm looking forward for this discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. So just to focus what today's theme is about, mines or industry up to now have had really standard options of either being grid connected or bringing diesels. And that landscape has changed, is changing. And we want to explore today with a panel the products and the services they are offering into that changed landscape. So the conference is focused on renewables, but we might stretch it a little bit to see all product offerings that are out there, but it is really to move away from the base case baseline into that new sphere of microgrids and renewables. So Akram, starting with yourself, what's the word out on the street? What are the mining companies saying on the change that they are looking for and the products that Caterpillar Microgrids can offer?
Yeah, it's a little bit like, okay, every time we are talking with a customer, okay, after the downturn, they are always talking about the total cost of ownership. They are talking about operational costs. They're talking about the reduction of emission, improving the efficiency, the cost per ton, how much it will costing them. And giving, okay, the energy, it can representing between 20 to 30% of their cost of operating costs. So it's becoming very interesting to find an innovative way to reduce this. And keeping this in mind, okay, with the declination, what's happening on the PV and wind, okay, recently, a lot of mining companies, okay, they start looking, okay, how we can get the benefit of this. The measure, what we are seeing, okay, mainly the off-grid mines, okay, they are the one who get the benefit of that because they are depending on the generation, diesel generation most of the time. So it was very beneficial for them, okay, to adapt to this technology or to get the benefit of it. The other thing also we started seeing in some area where the gas become available very close to the off-grid mine. So there are also, okay, changing, okay, from like diesel to operating, okay, in the gas as an alternative here, okay, it's for renewable as well. So this is all of this what we are seeing in the mining recently. In addition to that, a lot of people talking about energy storage, waiting for energy storage. It's not there yet. When we're talking about like, okay, be honest with everyone, we don't see it like it will be coming, but like we don't see it like in 2016, for example. The other thing we also notice is the changing of the business model. Like we've been talking about like a few years ago, there was a challenge like, okay, I'm interested in renewable, but I don't need to buy it. I don't need it in my book. I need just a BBA. And I think it is becoming very smart, like most of IBB become more smarter today, and they are offering this business model to the customer. That's mainly what we're seeing it changing when it's coming to the renewable.
Mark, your comment on moving away from the base case into this new horizon, how does Wärtsilä see that?
Sure. Well, Wärtsilä sees quite a strong move. You know, we originally started decades and decades ago as a HFO and diesel provider. Then we started selling more natural gas engines. And in fact, we now sell way more natural gas than we do liquid fuel. Now we're seeing the trend more and more to dual fuel. As Akram said, customers want the flexibility to use gas or diesel. And it makes a lot of sense in places where you might not have gas yet, but it could be coming in the form of LNG. So our customers are buying dual fuel equipment in the hope that gas will be there someday. Moving forward, Wärtsilä has recognized that renewables is the way of the future. Already a lot of our plants support wind around the world, but Wärtsilä has actually opened up a renewables division focusing on solar and storage. And in fact, we're doing our first solar project in Jordan. It's a 40 megawatt solar plant, which will be alongside a 250 megawatt HFO plant. So it'll be a hybrid plant that, you know, saves fuel by using solar energy. So we're seeing a real move from the traditional way to the new way. I would say of the 80 mines that we're involved in, probably a third of them are actively engaged in renewables projects or looking at it. So we're definitely seeing a shift in that direction.
Kazim, any new insights on Agreco's offering?
Yeah, I think very much in line with Akram and Mark on this. We're seeing this trend of diesel to gas conversion and dual fuel, the need for flexibility. A lot of market demand on renewables, in particular on solar, given the fact that it's much easier to assess the solar resource and assess the sort of savings that you can bring and the fuel, the diesel displacement you can bring, especially in off-grid situations. Also agreed that they're looking not to invest and trying to keep their dollars for their mining business as the primary business. So we're launching actually a renewable offering, a hybrid offering, where we will try and address the hurdles that we've heard over the past couple of days on basically having a PPA that the customers can buy, where they can buy energy. And also another dimension that we saw is that the difficulty of some mines to to deal with two separate providers, one for the diesel part and one from the solar part. And Peter earlier from UV addressed this point really well and showed the complexity that there is in the contractual agreements that you need to have between the diesel, the solar, the customer, and how that complexifies the financing. So we're actually trying to address that by having a single offering where we can finance ourselves the whole plant, the hybrid plant, including the diesel and the PV, and have a single contract that bundles both. So we're pretty hopeful that this will address some of the hurdles that we're seeing on the market.
Excellent. From the Cummins perspective, the notes that Satish discussed with us was some mines don't go full renewables, but they do add storage. So they're taking a phased approach to conventional diesel, then storage, and then have an upside on integrating some renewables. So storage is still a very positive step towards embracing the innovation. The second part there was biomass. I think it came up in the Africa section. But biomass gasification is also another element that's come up that Cummins does seem to offer. So I think there's a whole drop-down list of options that one can actually select, it seems, from the previous offerings. If we would then look at conventional business models versus new business models, let's explore that a little bit. The one thing that we know is you get your developers, your finances, your renewable suppliers, your process controllers, your customer, and you can cut it 1,000 ways, and you can probably cut the risk 1,001 ways because it's so highly fragmented. And for that ultimate user of the renewables, to integrate all of that in and work with so many suppliers is highly complex. And I think that's part of the challenge of what is the best streamlined business model, looking at so many stakeholders. So let's explore a little bit, knowing it's a complex territory, but who would like to jump in on that question? How does the new business model look like in this changed landscape?
I will take it normally that is exactly what is the challenge we've been seeing. Let's talk specifically about the mining. Normally when they are trying to adapt this new technology, they go to the different suppliers. I need to buy PV, I need to buy inverter, I need to buy energy storage, I need to put all of these pieces together. So the customer, or even the engineering consultant is ending with a piecemeal structure, and this piecemeal structure is coming from the supplier. Some of them, they don't have the global presence, or they don't have the global support, like Caterpillar, they have it today. So our strategy in Caterpillar, it is changing. So we've been looking at all of this as a big risk for the customer, and we stepped in, to take this risk on our behalf. So we are assuming the responsibility for designing the system, do the configuration, do the optimization, and providing you with a cost-effective solution, which is meet exactly what is your need. And when we're talking yesterday, like Deloitte mentioned, every mine is specific. Every project is specific. Every location is specific. It's how you're designing, you're considering all of these factors when you're designing your system. So that's what the great value we are bringing here to the table. And in addition to that, our dealer network, which is covering around 180 countries. So we're taking the responsibility for commissioning, startup, and the operation and maintenance. That's what we would like to do. Caterpillar always, when it's coming to the mine, we are always there for them. And when we're providing them with a solution, we would like to be sure, the solution we are providing would not be lasting for a day or two or a year or two, but it will take them, for 20 to 30 years until, like the end of the mine life.
Yeah, Wärtsilä, the new renewables division, is adopting a similar approach. We will be offering EPC, turnkey contracts. So we will take the risk and dual integration for the hybrid plant. Although, like Akram says, it does vary from place to place in the world. We do EPCs pretty much everywhere, but there's certain areas where it is challenging. For example, the far north of Canada, there are certain Canadian companies and local companies that know how to do work up there better than Wärtsilä would, for example. So there are times when we would just be providing the equipment and support, and others would be doing the construction and so on. But the model globally is more moving towards EPC, because really The mining companies want to deal with one entity. It's not their business to go out and source these things necessarily. So, you know, behind the scenes, of course, Wärtsilä has many partnerships with the leading edge controllers, with all the equipment that makes up the plant. And we also work very closely internationally with IPPs and the IPP community on the investment side. So partnerships definitely are occurring, but we're trying to present a one solution to the mining company.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think the other need that we're seeing increasingly is the need for flexibility. You know, Avalon mentioned that, you know, it's interesting that if you can, at the exploration stage already, sort of map out what your energy needs might be, it will help basically build a sort of roadmap as to how you can integrate, optimize your energy generation and incorporate renewables from the outset. So we're seeing, and at the other end of the spectrum, towards the end of the life, you know, the energy requirements are changing quite a bit. So we also see a lot of customers asking for the flexibility to increase or decrease their generation according to the mine life cycle, which I think, you know, is sort of putting them more in the position of wanting a third party to provide that, to have the modularity to service their needs at various times in the life of the mine, which is pretty exciting. It can be challenging, but it's pretty exciting that they can rely on third parties to do that and don't have to sink the capex into a certain amount of capacity that they're not going to use 5 years down the road.
Actually, this ties us very nicely into the point of partnerships. So what we've explored was almost a transition from standing alone operation to suppliers, going into an integrated business model, taking on some more risk, and now moving into partnerships. And I'm sure that puts up its own challenges. So it's a nice segue for us into what does that partnership look like? And some of it is forward-looking partnerships into your client, but then what I hear you, Mark, say is also there's partnerships that you engage on the other end that connects the whole chain through. So I'm going to start with you, just building on that. What does that partnership model look going forward and looking backwards to supply that whole range?
That's a good question. I mean, is this working again? I would say it really varies from project to project. There's not a simple answer for all scenarios. As I mentioned, we have many partnerships with leading, for example, controls, which is so important in integrating the wind and the solar with the diesel or the natural gas plant. For instance, we're dealing a lot with Siemens, who have some leading technology in that area. And then for all of the supporting equipment, we have ongoing technical partnerships with experts in that field. Partnerships with the mining company, that's somewhat new ground for us. You know, the renewable space is fairly new, I think, to all of us OEMs. And I think things will develop as they do and as we get more experience. Yeah.
Karim?
Yeah, I think for us, we're not on the partnership side and the supplier side, we're really not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of good companies that can provide a solar plant, a turnkey solar plant, build it to requirements and provide performance warranties. So we don't have any intent to do that ourselves. We want to rely on the best people for the particular project that we're looking at, and some people will be more suited for a project in Africa. Others will be more suited for a project in Australia. So we really want to leverage the existing, know-how and supply chain in the PV industry. At the same time, I think what we're trying to do is bring added value in the integration and the operation of a PV plant in conjunction with the diesel plant and co-optimizing the two, because that's our know-how. Our know-how is to operate plants, and whether we operate them with load management or distributed energy resources, we think that's where we add value, and we want to focus on that. For all the rest that is not core to our business, we really want to leverage existing industry know-how, and there's a lot out there that's available.
It's working. Yeah. For us, okay, it was a little bit different because we've been looking also on the financing side of the project. And what we find out, okay, most of the financing company or the financing organization, they will be looking for a standard product. It has been developed and has been like mature and repeated, okay, from project to project. This has reduced the risk on the financing side. So approach we've been taking, okay, to provide a standard product. And to be able to do this, we've been, as Karim mentioned, okay, we've been looking, okay, for the company who has like a very long proven track record, okay, to working with. Mainly the solution we are adopting today, we're just adopting like the solar plus the energy storage plus with our traditional genset, either gas or diesel or HFO. That's what we are doing. For this regard, to be able to provide a complete integrated solution, we reached a partnership agreement with the solar manufacturing, First Solar. And the reason for this one, because we believe like First Solar, they have a thin film technology, which it will be the future. The efficiency for this technology has been improved during the last 2 years over multicrystalline, so it's becoming very powerful and improving, giving you more energy yield, so you can produce more megawatt hour for the money you are going to invest. So that's what we are bringing this side. In inverter side, we reached a partnership agreement with SMA. SMA is a leader for solar inverter, and we are working with them on the smaller size and also okay on the central inverter size as well. When it's coming to the energy storage, we having our developed bidirectional inverter. This is Caterpillar product, and behind it we can use different ultracapacitor lithium-ion battery or metal L battery, which is a new technology we discovered in 2015, and we investing in company Fluidic Energy. And today, this afternoon, they will have a panel discussion about the energy storage, so they can highlight the advantage of Fluidic product. Again, okay, this is from the supplier side. That's what we are doing. So we are taking all of this and we keep it in mind. We have one brand, one supplier. It's coming from Caterpillar or branded Caterpillar from one supplier, one warranty, one product support with our dealer. That is what we are seeing. It's more advantage to the market.
Maybe one more point on the, I think, on the partnership with the mining companies, because I think it's also an important point on all these projects. We really feel that there needs to be a sort of mutual commitment to work together on developing these hybrid projects and improve the performance, because a lot of the value will be in the operational improvement, the fine-tuning of the hybrid plants, the amount of not risk, but the amount of optimization we can do that can only be agreed with the mining company, because it may have implication on the reliability of the plant. So I think it's also a sort of continuous dialogue with the mining company, making them being very transparent about how we are operating the plant, what the impact might be on the sort of the economics, what the impacts might be on the reliability, and have a mutual understanding of how we work together and we develop this roadmap to improve the performance. And that will help, I think, it will go a long way, sort of convincing also the investment community, the equity investors and the lenders, that these plants are operating and that they're actually providing good value for the end customer.
I think that is an excellent point. We've moved beyond the psychology of plug-and-play suppliers. So you just have your plant and you plug in a solution and you go. That crossing over into each other's world for operational improvement, operational efficiency is really where you get that extra NPV dollars out. And ultimately, as the asset owner, now I'm speaking now from a mining capacity, when you do take over that asset, you want to make sure that your commissioning and handover cycle has been as streamlined as possible. So I think that becomes definitely the expected behavior from both sides.
If you allow me to add one thing here, okay, I would like just to highlight, guys, okay, we don't need to forget the diesel generator is a backbone for any system. So we are talking about renewable, we talk about the improvement, talk about the new technology, but there is a lot of also improvement going on the diesel generator side. And this is what we need to think about it as well. So when you think about microgrid, think about it in all. It's one package. So you need to get the best out of the diesel generator if you are operating. So there is a lot of improvement in efficiency, a lot of improvement in the total operating cost, reducing the downtime, make it easier, okay, for installation, make it easy plug and play, like what you are seeing for a rental side. This is big value. So not like when we talk about microgrid, please don't forget also about the diesel generator.
It's full integration. Actually asking Satish from Cummins on this question, I said, so how does Cummins approach the partnership model? And their response was partnership is part of their DNA because they've been long-term business partners on their conventional product offering. And I think that is not dissimilar to yourselves. And in the partnering, ultimately what you want is the 1 + 1 = 3 scenario. So you leverage value, and he did say stronger together, and we had a laugh about that based on the timing. But the challenge on that is if you already have an existing partnership in an organization, say you're already a diesel supplier or heavy equipment supplier, and now you have the relationship and the credibility to expand and add in your vertical integrated additional product offerings, you already have your foot in the door. So this probably now brings us to the next question on barriers of this. If you are already have a client relationship with a mining or industry company, I assume those barriers to entry is going to be less than if you are a supplier right now trying to break into finding a customer base, still being quite fragmented in your product offering. You don't have access to financing, or you're not a developer, or you don't have the relationship. Let's talk about those barriers. Why are we not doing this already straight away? What is that stoppage of bringing in more renewables and bringing in more innovation into our baseline? Mark.
Well, I think the barriers traditionally had been the cost of the renewables. And as we've seen in the last couple of days, that is coming down to a point where a lot of people are getting interested. Certainly, as an existing supplier to a lot of mines, the barriers are less to get in there. Some of the things we've seen barrier-wise in the developing world is being access to land for the large solar farms. I think you need 1 to 2 hectares per megawatt. So that's often a barrier. But really, to date, the barriers that I've seen have been cost. And I think that's the key point that we should all take away, is it's now economically feasible to do these projects, and we're seeing that, as you demonstrated with your project. So I sense a real changing in tide. I don't think the barriers are that significant. The financial hurdles have always been the biggest one that I've seen. And I think the economics are starting to stack up a lot better now.
Maybe an additional one is, especially for mines that are off-grid, is really the life of the mine, which is impacting the economics of the solar. Because if you're trying to sell solar power with the assumption that you want to amortize the plant in 5 years, you might not provide any value to the mining company. You might not even meet their current energy costs. So, so someone has to wet their shirts a little bit and take a risk on the asset reutilization, on the redeployment. We're prepared to start on that because we think it's something that will help advance the business case for that. And we're also pretty confident that with the development of renewables and the cost reductions, the market will actually expand quite a bit, which means there will be opportunities to reuse the solar kits with other mines in other locations. So if that can help develop the market, we're pretty happy to do it. Obviously, there's always a discussion on the risk allocation. And the longer the term that we can get the better the deal that the end customer can get. But we also appreciate that they don't always have the full visibility on the mine life. So it's a discussion once again to be had.
Akram, anything different in addition?
Yeah, I think like when we talk about the challenge here or barriers here, telling you the truth, like, okay, there is something we can do it, but I don't see the challenge. Because when we're talking about it, like I've been here, okay, like this is like, you remember, Mark, we've been here in 2013, we talked about the future, about renewable. There was some talking about the education, talking about the technology is not there, talking about like, we need to learn more, we need to know how to do these things together. But yesterday we've been celebrating, okay, with 10 companies, they already implemented renewable. So it is already there. So the technology is there, the system is there, the business model is there. And most of the supplier and IBB and the power developers, they are smart enough to find a way how to work it out. At the end, as Mark mentioned, okay, it should be financially make sense for everyone. So it should be making sense, okay, depend on your location, depend on where you are, depend on the fuel cost on your side, depend on how much you are burning, depend on your megawatts. There's a lot of things that will be available, but when it is makes sense, I think nothing will stop them. And what I like yesterday, there was panel discussion. I believe the company, TMSC Resources, they make it very simple. Like, what exactly they are looking for? I need to reduce my diesel generation, reduce emission, and saving money. That's just the three things. And if these three things been done and been accomplished, nothing will stop for adopting the renewable technology today.
I want to build on that comment. As simplicity is, I think we create the complexity, or we create the simplicity, and it's all how you think about these things. Just speaking from our own experience on our project, which was deemed not possible or economic, and when you really start to connect the dots, it flows logically very fast. Yeah. You need to have a can-do attitude. These things are never easy, but actually they're not difficult either. We've got very smart people around us, and it's pulling on all of these things is actually extremely rewarding once you start connecting these things through. Just looking at what our Commons person has stated. So, you know, he was also of the mind that the challenges these days, or the barriers, are not technical or operational. They are probably product standardization, and I think speaks to your point of when you do modularize or pick up here and reposition and you have more flexibility, then standardization becomes probably even more key, that you can retrofit fairly fast. The other comment here was as well is regulatory certainty. So is there a framework to make these projects flow? I know when we look at a mining royalty and taxation perspective, is there anything that the government can do to be more innovative in the structuring of that and bring renewables in, since we are such a large carbon footprint? And it's not just the operating footprint, it's the logistics of the fuel or congestion of the transmission network. So there's a lot of indirects that are at play here. I think in Canada, it does seem that there's some different innovation coming from the government regulatory perspective. And then the last one here is lobbying, industry lobbying. I think a conference like this, Adrian, is bringing different people together to lobby on how to create those integrations. So fantastic just on that point. Let's, at this stage, throw it open to the audience on questions. And apologies for the people on this side. I've been sitting our backs to you. Any questions from the audience to our esteemed panelists? So I don't see any hands yet, so let me stir the pot a bit.
We still have time, right?
We're very good on time. So what we're looking at here is moving from plain baseline diesel generic offerings to new products, equipment, suppliers in the market. We're going from Agreco to Wärtsilä, Cummins, and Caterpillar Microgrids. We are looking at how do you vertically integrate or change your business modeling to make it easier to bring renewables into the conventional mining supply landscape. We talked about barriers, why it's not straightforward, i.e. why are we not doing more of this? And we looked at some of those factors. Based on that, any questions?
Yeah, please. Got you. Yeah. You can talk.
What do I do with this?
Don't open it.
Just talk with this. Ah, nice. Very good. It works. I think the question I'd like to ask is what challenges do you guys see for your companies in adapting to this energy transition, if any?
So let's start. So just if anyone hasn't heard, safety first, obviously. Is what are the challenges that each of the companies are seeing changing or moving into this landscape? So let's start. Karim, on your side, challenges.
I think the first one is really to prove that it actually works, because mines, in our experience, mines are value energy. They value the reliability of energy, sometimes even more than the savings that they can have on that end as a primary driver. So really, we're really looking forward to having our first project on the ground next year. We're closing right now. That will sort of demonstrate not only that the economics can be interesting, but that it actually doesn't put the grid down when you have too much solar, that it runs well. So I think that's probably the main challenge, is to actually have something on the ground that operates well. And from what we've seen in the past couple of days, we're very hopeful that that's already been demonstrated in other projects. So there's really no reason we won't be able to do it, but we see that as the main hurdle to convincing customers.
Yeah, I think the main challenge is probably in the integration of the systems. No doubt reliability is key, and the beauty of the reciprocating engines they are quite dynamic, very flexible. They can ramp up very quickly, they can shut down very quickly. But optimizing the solar and the diesel or gas generators together, I think that is where the challenge lies. And also making it simple for the operators to operate the system. I think Nicola from Tuglik mentioned that when you're operating in a remote location, your operators really need to be familiar and confident and embrace the technology, or you'll have a lot of problems. And for me, I think that would be the biggest problem or challenge going forward.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Mark. Okay, regarding the technology itself, I think the technology has been proven at utility scales. For example, like First Solar, we are using, they have over 13 gigawatts already installed today. So it's a proven technology. So I'm not worried about the technology, but I agree with Mark about the optimization. And you have to pick the right configuration. How do you put these things together? And when you think about it, like Deloitte mentioned yesterday, you don't need to think about just only on energy side, but you have to think about it, okay, on the mine side. So you need to keep in consideration, okay, the process, the mining, the crushing, everything you are using on the mine, and you can find a way how to optimize it. The future, I think, will helping us because we start seeing a lot of what you call it, digitalizations. That's what is happening. They're collecting a lot of data from our equipment. It's we call it the age of the smart iron. The iron become like a smartphone, like, okay, you're collecting more information, understanding how this will be operating, how this will be reacting on site, and how you manage this demand with your supply, on the generation. And when you tie this together and you do the right optimization, this will be an excellent in the future. Another thing, I guess, like giving you a small example, most of people are talking about the spinning reserve. They keep the generator running, okay, because I cannot get rid of it. But understanding and have the data and insight how will be looks like, how the load curve will be like, what will be the demand, this can helping you in the future to eliminate or shut down some of this or reducing, okay, the amount of the spinning reserve you are depending on it.
All right, so any more questions? Yep.
Cool. My question, first of all, I'd like to start by saying it's great what you guys are doing. I think it'll make projects like these run a lot smoother, and so appreciate that. My question is about your long-term strategy. Just say 10, 20 years time, what are you expecting, or where do you want to get to in this industry? I know it might have been you might have been forced into this to some extent with renewable energy coming on board and your revenues being eaten up if you didn't do it. But yeah, I just want to know what you're expecting in the future, or where do you want to get to with storage coming online, maybe renewable energy being able to cover more and more of the capacity at the mines. So yeah.
I can start. Pretty long shot to predict 15, 20 years out, but I think taking a step back from what we've seen, yesterday, and from what most people are aware, the future is really a mix of conventional energies and renewable energies. We think that the value of energy suppliers will be a lot more into energy management than energy generation itself. So the intelligence and the being smart about how we control several sources of energy, some intermittent, some more controllable. This is actually, starting to do that on what is actually the most challenging segment, which is an off-grid segment for a small size. We think that will help us become relevant as a sort of energy company in the future, in the grid connected world where you have such a diverse mix of energy sources. And now is the time to start of build the IP and build the capabilities and collect the data to be able to be relevant in that world and provide those services. So I think that's what we're getting excited about, is really building that for the future.
Yeah. Caterpillar strategy when it's coming to this area, we've been looking on renewable, not just only for mining, to be honest with you. We've been looking for all applications, starting from like distributed generation, telecommunication, rural electrification, commercial and industrial, and plus mining, okay, like including here. We would like to be the leader by 2020. We would like to be the leader of the supplier of the generation, like, okay, or renewable power to most of this sector. That's our plan, and that's what we've been doing for the last few years, building ourselves, okay, to reach to this point. Again, keep in mind, okay, this technology is changing day by day. I'm learning something new every hours. I'm like still learning, like every hours we receiving new information, new efficiency, new product coming to the market. So again, okay, we keep adjusting and we keep innovating, but we will be one of the leader on the market. Does this answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
I suppose if battery storage comes online, for example, and we can load shift, is it an option for you guys to basically remove diesel generation in some instances?
Yes, I can tell you, and that's one of the things we've been doing. We invested in 2015 in fluidic energy. This is battery manufacturer who already have a proven technology for this, what you've been talking about, it like time shifting. They have a lot of cell around the world since 2012, so it's a proven technology has been implemented or executed. We are doing this at the smaller scales for rural electrification and for telecommunication. So exactly what you mentioned in your curve, during the day, you're using power from the solar. After the sunset, you depend on the battery to take you for a few hours before you start your diesel generator. Yes, that is a business we'll be looking at. No problem.
Yeah, from my side, I think in the future, I don't think we'll get away from needing the diesel and the natural gas. I think the nature of mining operations, when you're starting your big motors, your SAG mills, and at this stage, it doesn't seem practical to do away with your traditional fuel, from my perspective. I think our challenge in the next 10, 20 years is to be as flexible as we can to integrate as much as we can. And ultimately, the goal is to save fuel. But I think you will need that heavy lifting to keep the reliability that is so key in the mining world. But it's certainly moving at a very quick pace. So 20 years from now, it's very difficult to know what it'll look like. Yeah.
And I think we should not forget mobile gear. We do think stable, stationary plant, power generation. But you know, when you start to make your equipment selection is really where you set your strategy in motion. So if you're going to decide, I'm going to go for diesel-driven haul trucks, scoops, heavy mobile equipment, you lock yourself into a specific asset strategy for quite a while. And you know, when new operations stand or start up or go through a transition, that selection criteria, I think, now has changed. A lot more electrification, which means more storage. So electrical vehicles would pull a lot more on battery storage, not just for power generation, but for mobile equipment, which should not be overlooked. And together with that, you do start to pull in, I think, the vision, if we're thinking a little bit of blue sky here, a lot of the data management, telecommunications, asset optimization. We know in mining our assets are not utilized to the full, and we do leave some asset capability untapped, and these investments are capital intensive, and we are looking for all the ways to squeeze out every way that we can optimize our both sides, stationary as well as mobile gear. And I think that is an era that's going to pick up much faster, has to, going forward. Also, when you look at losses, you can do a lot more with your energy efficiency and regeneration when you tap into electrical gear. So
I just want to say I agree fully with that. I think you're absolutely right about that.
I think this panel is going to just conclude on time. We're giving some time back, Adrian. Thank you very much for being a patient audience, and to our three panelists, fantastic job. Thank you.